With the Extra Point, this is Erik McKinney, joined by Greg Katz. And Greg, big news in the Pac-12 on Thursday. The conference has a new commissioner. And after so long and really so little information coming out during the search, it is a name that is out of left field, but left field in a different stadium. I mean, it came absolutely out of nowhere. It's not an athletic director. It's not a former football player. It's not anybody from the world of collegiate sports. It is George Kliavkoff, and he's right now the president of entertainment and sports for MGM Resort International. Saying that's the lead up. Your reaction to that, and then we got to hear from him a little bit when he addressed the media. Again, kind of initial thoughts from you on this being the choice.
Well, I have to agree with you. I thought it was from the parking lot behind the left field pavilion. First thing I thought was not another Larry Scott. Please don't do that to us. Because, a commissioner can only do so much. I've been working in the Division I level of college sports for probably over 35 years in some capacity. So I've worked under many athletic directors myself personally. And you'd be surprised how much you can do and you can't do as the athletic director. But at USC, which is a major up there in the high level Division I, it does make a difference in many ways. So when they named George as the Pac-12 commissioner, I think I was a little taken back, but I was open. Let's hear what he's got to say. We're in a different era. We're in a social media. We're in a Hulu and all these other forms of communication. And he's obviously well-versed in it. He's touched on the Major League Baseball and the original streaming and rights and all that sort of stuff. And we know one of the big arguments with the Pac-12 has been this direct TV ridiculous thing where the Pac-12 network, it wasn't even on direct TV. And I thought one of his key comments was, of course, we're going to be on all social media. So he sees the value of that. But I think what also caught my mind was that he hit on some points that I think that all football fans in the Pac-12 in general wanted to hear. And they wanted to hear it from somebody other than Larry Scott at the end of his term. And that was, he is for expanding the playoffs, okay? Which, when asked about what does that actually mean, I don't know, because, I have to see all the variables, although he dropped the hint that said something in June is going to happen, which means that he's maybe aware that something's going to happen. Maybe they're going to make an announcement they're expanding for next year or the year after, which I thought was interesting. He also said that, let's face it, football and basketball are the big revenue generating sports, which was refreshing that he wasn't talking about, the Tiddlywinks team or the backward rowing team. Of course, he went to Boston University as a rower, so he's competed at the collegiate level. But I thought that one of the byproducts of it was the fact that Carol Folt was on this committee. And she obviously was probably watching, I would bet my retirement paycheck on it, that she heard him say, the biggest weakness in this conference is no national championships in football and basketball, and no national championship, I think, since 2005, something like that. And it caught my attention because we all know that USC has been the standard bearer for generations of national championships. And I think that could be, and I could be wrong, a game changer in her attitude towards football, the coaching situation. When you have the newly appointed commissioner of the Pac-12 saying our weakness is football and we need to win national championships, and people are going to, like it or not, Dr. Folt, people are going to turn to USC and they're going to say, if we need a leader in this, you have got to be one of the leaders, if not the leader. And it's going to change the dynamics, I think, somewhat about the direction of the program, but maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part.
Yeah, the lack of college sports experience, it's a huge red flag. And it's something where it was going to get not glossed over, but kind of put on kind of the prettiest wrapping paper around it during that press conference. And it is easy for someone like this to win a press conference. I mean, you hardly leave a press conference thinking this is a disaster and this is not going to go well. So that kind of continues, that lack of experience there. But it feels like he understands what his weaknesses are. The fact that he could come out and say, hey, as a conference, this is our weakness. And he feels like, it seems like he understands, look, this is what I can do really well. This is what I'm not going to be able to do really well at. And this is where I need to surround myself with people. That is not something we ever heard from Larry Scott. Larry Scott was, everything is great. This is perfect. We're amazing. There is nothing wrong. And that just could not have been further from the truth in so many different areas. And what I thought was really refreshing about him coming in today and talking about certain things is, you said it, he talked about revenue sports, he talked about media rights. And you have, at this time, you have to elevate football. You have to elevate basketball above the other sports, because that is what makes you as a conference. It's great to be the conference of championships and win beach volleyball national championships and do that. There's pride in that when you can kind of line all of those up. But to get those things done, you need football to drive the car. And so for him to say, yes, this is important, this is what we need to do, for him to talk about, we need a place in the college football playoff as one of the first things that he came out and said, really unprompted, he either got really good information and prepped really well for this, or he, again, did his homework and kind of knows, I need to be able to hit the ground running in these specific things. He talked about, yes, the Pac-12 network is going to be going forward, but clearly not pleased with what it looks like right now and knows all the changes that have to come with that. The things that I love about him in terms of what he can do for the Pac-12, he knows, being in Las Vegas with MGM, he knows spectacle and he knows drawing eyeballs. And so that is something the Pac-12 absolutely needs, because you can't change the fact that you're 3 hours behind the East Coast, that your games naturally are going to be late. But he comes out and says, we need to address time slots, we need to address scheduling, we need to address every single thing there is. And that is where maybe going outside of the box here and not bringing in someone who has just been in this world forever, who just knows, yeah, the Pac-12 plays at 7 o'clock, 7:30, and that's your time. For him to come in and kind of start dropping those thoughts of, no, we need to figure this out. We need to play when people can see us. We need to put our content where people can see it. He's done things like drive Olympics coverage, and that was one of those things where I can recall seeing that everywhere. And so if that's going to be something that he can do with Pac-12 football, I think that is really good. Again, the red flag being there's no experience there, that doesn't go away just because he says some nice things. That is something where he's going to have to really follow through on that and show that he can do it. I think the fact that he comes out pretty early on, says, I'm going to meet with the athletic directors, I'm going to hear from the coaches, I want to know everything that everyone involved in this has to say about it. And it feels like he's going to, lower himself, I guess, to talk with people kind of throughout the conference and get a real idea of what's going on and how to fix it. Again, I know it's easy to win introductory press conferences. You know what the problems are and you can address them. Now carrying that forward obviously is going to be kind of the big talking point. But I left it, I don't know about you, but I left it feeling better than when you first heard the name and you think, here we go again. And it's going to be more of the same.
Well, I think he limited it in scope to the things that mattered. Okay, I think it matters to people. I think you hit the nail on the head, and I was going to say it if you hadn't. This idea that he's going to revisit the scheduling and kickoff times. Now, you don't do that if everything's going well. He's lived on the West Coast, so he was in Vegas. He knows what it means when there's a 7:30 kickoff. He knows what time those games end. He also knows if the Pac-12 network is on, shall we say, direct TV, that really the Pac-12 could actually kick off sometimes when they want to get, and people are going to tune in because they want to see whoever they want to see at that time slot that they're kicking off at. But I think he gets it, and I think that it's not, more is not necessarily better, and he understands that there's a few things that we need to really address on, and he hit on them, and I felt comfortable when he said it. Now the question is, now that you have said it, what are you going to do about it? and everyone will be looking to see, when do we kick off? What's the future schedule is going to look like? But more than that, I think what I learned, and I was part of the Big West Conference for decades, and one of the things I learned was a commissioner can only do so much. Okay, it's up to the individual schools to hire great coaches who go out and recruit great players, and you can put together a conference. In the case of, let's say, the Big West, at one time they played football, but then they stopped playing football because other schools wanted to go to a higher level with more attendance. But at one time, the Big West was better than the Pac-12 in basketball, and that was during the UNLV years, and when they had Fresno State and New Mexico State, and those schools were seeing even Long Beach State on occasionally, even though these were not high-profile schools in the sense that when you think of Pac-12 schools. But the idea of putting together a coalition of schools that all put their mind to the same set. In fact, UNLV raised the standard of recruiting in basketball in the Big West enormously, to the point where ESPN decided to rebrand the name of the conference. It used to be Pacific Coast Athletic Association, but when they said, how about if you play on Monday night following our big Monday Big East game, the Big West, or Big 10 games, well, how about at night, we'll call you the Big West. So television has that impact, but it's going to be up to USC to either take advantage. I think they're under a whole different set of, should we say, future perspectives on what are you going to do now? And we're going to find out what they're going to do.
And one of the things, again, he brought up media rights. He talked about a lot. That's going to be key because the Pac-12 is coming up and they're going to be able to negotiate it. And I like that he's clearly comfortable in that and finding different ways to go and being able to land the Pac-12 kind of the best deal possible. But it feels like he's more than that, where the Pac-12 couldn't just hire some master negotiator to get that done and then sit in an office for years and years and have no other expertise or experience doing things. That he talked about getting this content on so many different platforms, and really just the media rights thing being the very tip of the iceberg in terms of getting content out and bringing eyeballs to it. I thought that was big when he talks about media rights, when he talks about recruiting, when he talks about name, image, likeness. Those are things that are going to be big. Those are things where when he talks about, hey, the Pac-12 can lead the way in these things, it always felt like everything that came up in terms of college football would sort of take Larry Scott and the conference as a whole by surprise. Oh, we weren't ready for that. We didn't know that was coming. We've got to react to it now and figure something out. If you're going to lead the way as a conference, you hit it too. USC has to do it. They have to do it. And I think my hope is that he understands, again, what you talked about. USC needs to be, the gorilla in the conference. When Alabama is doing that for the SEC, I don't think you mind it as much when you're Mississippi State or when you're Mississippi or Vanderbilt or whatever, because when you beat them, it means more. Right now, if Cal beats Oregon, it's fine. Cal's not elevated into the top 2, top 3 in the country because of that. They're both down at 22, 23. So as a conference, you can't have that. You need the one team to carry you, and the rest of the programs understand, hey, if that's happening, that helps us climb faster. That helps you get into the top of those rankings and game day and everything that comes with it more. So yeah, I agree. This shifts the spotlight now. If you've got a leadership kind of program with him and whoever he brings in around him, if you've got a leadership situation at the top of the Pac-12 that you're happy with, you've got to step it up if you're USC and get there, because other programs, they're not going to wait around for you to do it. And so Oregon is already kind of leading the charge there, and they'll be very happy to step into that spot.
I think one thing that did surprise me, I don't know how you feel about it, I'm kind of curious to hear your thoughts on it, is he mentioned on sports betting. And that kind of caught me as a surprise when I think of sports betting so out in the open. I guess they do it in Colorado. Maybe I caught that wrong, but
yeah, it's here. And Colorado, last fall, Colorado signed a partnership deal with an online sports betting. And so he was clear, we've got to be very careful, right? We can't do it to take advantage of the student athletes or anything like that. And we need to find a way to do it. But He also said, closing in on 30 states around the country and out here in the West region and the Pac-12 footprint, it's legal, and it's something where that's revenue generating, and finding a way to kind of tie things in to the benefit of student athletes and the benefit of programs. Yeah, I mean, that's coming, and he's very clearly aware of the impact that can have. And I think that's, in the not too distant future, in terms of how the Pac-12 kind of figures out how to integrate that into its athletics.